Oh, we are live. Holy moly. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wake Up with Toastmaster. I am Jennifer Smith, the Division D Director for District 115, and we have our co-host, Doris, and from Canada. And what district are you from, actually?
District 86.
86. All right. And we have our special guest today, Miss Carolyn Wilker, right, Carolyn?
Right.
So welcome. Good morning. Sorry, my brain, we couldn't get started on this morning, so I don't know what that was all about. But of course, we problem solve. That's what we do, and we are live. So Carolyn, welcome, as I said, and welcome with Wake Up with Toastmasters. And all of our first-time guests gets asked this question. Tell us about your first meeting that you went to with Toastmasters.
Oh, that's a good one. I went in there not knowing what I was getting into. A friend, actually a fellow, she was a Toastmaster at the time. I was telling her about needing to speak perhaps at some point, and she said, come with me to Toastmasters. So I walked in there, and there's all these people with these tent cards around the table with all these initials on. I thought, what does that mean? And they all seemed to know what they were doing, and I didn't. I think I watched that first day. I didn't really, well, if we talk about the first speech day, now that's another story.
Well, tell us about that. We have 30 minutes.
I actually had practiced at Tim Hortons with this girl who introduced me to Toastmasters. So I thought, am I ready? I don't know. I got up there with my pieces of paper because I'm a writer, you know, and I need to have my words just right. I laid them down on the table. My knees shook. My hands shook. The paper in my hands shook. So eventually I put it down, but I had to keep an eye on what was on that paper. I seriously thought about, putting it down and leaving, but I finished and I sat down and I trembled until after the evaluation was over, and I thought, they liked it.
That's always nerve-wracking. I love seeing first-time Toastmasters get up and speak, because I remember that feeling as well of shaking. And when people go up, when they do their icebreakers, new members do their icebreakers, I always send a notice, the little note, the nervousness, it may never go away, but inside you'll be nervous, but outside you won't. And so you will learn that is something that you can overcome. So I always tell them that, because of the fact that, and somebody who gave an evaluation gave that to my sister once, and I always remember that, because it actually does. So now I didn't do your whole bio. I loved your bio. Thank you for sending that to us. You are an author. So did you join Toastmasters because you wanted to promote your books, or why did you actually join?
First of all, I had a couple of pieces of writing accepted for publication. And one of the founders of our organization, the Word Guild, said, at some time you may be called on to speak because people are curious about writers. You may need to teach about writing, or you may need to promote a book. Well, I was far from a book at that point. And I thought, well, I should get ready. And I did get ready well before my first book was published. And Doris was my MC for that day. So I was getting ready, and I was glad I did that, because I enjoyed my first book launch, which I may not have if I had been a brand new speaker.
I tell people that because people do write, you run into writers all the time. It's kind of interesting that people are, oh, I'm an author. I'm like, Oh, great. You just never think of who you're meeting who's an author. And then I do suggest Toastmasters because of the same reason, right? Because you are going to promote yourself. You are going to be in interviews and you will need to learn how to communicate. So, and you
Right.
found that very beneficial for you to help you launch your book, right? And
Yes.
go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I had an interview with the editor of my hometown newspaper. And after meeting Marge and learning about Toastmasters, and I got that interview, I thought, now I know that I need to do it. So that was in the spring. And then in September, I thought, I need to get into Toastmasters, whatever it is.
Whatever it is. I went to actually a funeral yesterday, and the rabbi actually said, well, since you are all Toastmasters, let's give a toast. And it was just a typical thing of what people think Toastmasters is. Toasting.
Or is it Toastmistress if you're a woman?
Yes. Now, it sounds like you're in Canada. Are you in a small town as well?
No,
Or
I'm in a city, a good
you're in a
sized city. Kitchener-Waterloo are known as twin cities. So I'm not sure what the number of population is now.
I think it's
It's
close
a pretty
to
good size.
I think it's close to 500,000.
Oh, that's a nice size. I remember when Vegas was that small. Now, I was going to say that you are a local celebrity, you are an author, and so do you get invited a lot to promote your books or talk about writing?
When I joined the church that I'm at now, I was invited to speak at the women's special event that was, in the first year. I haven't done a lot of speaking in that regard, but I have done presentations for Toastmasters District in our training sessions, also in the Word Guild conference. I have done presentations several times there. And I teach at the Brockway Center when it's possible. That's right in Kitchener.
Do you teach about writing or do you teach about storytelling?
Mostly about writing. I am a storyteller too. However, that's not something I've taught a lot. I did do a beginner session with another storyteller at the Button Factory in Waterloo, which is an arts organization. It used to be an old button factory. It was actually a place where they manufactured buttons.
Wow.
It's an arts building.
So Doris, we had the collector of perfumes the other day, and I have a little container of buttons. I'm a collector of buttons.
When we first went to the Button Factory after the Story Barn, Mary Eileen, our mentor and beginner of the Baden Storytellers Guild, had a jar of buttons that people could choose a button when we went out in public. We had activities, and that was one of them.
Oh,
because sometimes they fell through the rafters.
oh,
They landed,
oh my goodness.
collected them.
Wow. Yeah, I should go through those because I had some really cool suits with cool buttons, and I would just put them in like I am ever going to repair a button on my suit, right? Now, Carolyn, we haven't asked you yet, what type of books do you write about?
My very first book was called Once Upon a Sandbox. It's a memoir about growing up on a family farm in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, wow.
After that, I wrote a children's book. After my father died, I was seeing all these little children at the funeral and thinking they won't remember being here someday. And they also won't know what was special to their great-grandfather if no one tells them. So that's what the story started. That was part of my grief project. We worked on Good Grief People, another group, at about the same time.
Wow, that's great. It's great that you have that knack? Did you always want to be a writer, or?
Actually, I didn't think about being a writer when I was a kid in school. I was sitting in that one-room schoolhouse, never thought about writing. But I always liked writing letters. When my sister went away to school, we wrote back and forth. When my friend moved away, we wrote. When I had transferred to go to the East Coast for the first time, I knew my aunt would have liked to go, but I wrote her a letter. I wrote her a travelogue letter. So I did like writing letters.
Yeah. Oh, so I think that's like I was going to say that there's a very good knack of being able to put what's in your head and onto paper. I think that is a very, very good knack. I can't do it. I cannot write letters and cannot write. They always say, journal. I cannot even journal. Like, what do I want to write?
I don't journal regularly either.
Yeah.
I just write when last night I needed to put together something for our church newsletter. I needed to finish it. Interesting that you should say about someone with perfumes. My first published article was ended up an opinion piece in our National Canada Lutheran. And I was writing about how fragrances affect people health-wise.
Oh,
Man-made fragrances, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's where I started. And then I thought, when I went to my first writers conference in 2001, I thought I can write other things. So I started experimenting with book reviews and poetry. And my poetry first looked like words on a page that looked like a poem, but it's evolved and I've had a lot published.
Wow. I see all the books on the bookshelf. Are those what you've written, or?
Well, the ones here, the picture books here are mine. And piece by piece, and I don't have sandbox right here, but it's in my shelf.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. Doris, do you have any questions for Carolyn?
Yes, I do see the book behind her, Harry's Trees, which was also published in French because we are bilingual in Canada. And that is very interesting that she has branched out. And she is just an amazing woman. And she seems to pack so much in her day. And I know she breaks her days down into maybe half hour or 15-minute segments so she can accomplish so much. Tell me about your hobbies and your special interests that you have outside of Toastmasters, Carolyn.
Right. I've always been interested in music. I took piano lessons as a child, but I've learned to play guitar and uke, and I still play piano. I'm doing watercolor these days. There's a piece like one I gave to Doris.
Show it up a little bit higher. Higher, like cover the whole screen. Higher, there you are.
There we go. Waves washing onto the sand.
Oh, I love it.
She knows I love the ocean.
Yes.
I actually have a few of her art pieces framed in my house because they just make me feel very, very warm feeling, very cared for, and especially when it's from such a good friend.
Oh, now that means that you can do your own book covers too.
Not really. But that takes a lot of skill because you have to be consistent. I have seen some art that people sent to me. Does this work for my book? I said, well, maybe not. In this story, this boy looks like he's 5, and this story looks like he's 10 in this page. So, you really have to be consistent. So the people who do art for book covers have been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
I'm just experimenting.
She's being very humble right now. She's doing so well, and she works on it daily, almost. She's always working on watercolors. And I also think that she should incorporate her artwork in her books, and maybe she could mix it with another artist and do some pages and maybe have somebody else do some other pages. I would love to see that, Carolyn.
Oh, there's a challenge right there, Carolyn.
So the books that I write, I would like someone else to illustrate them.
Now we talk about your writing and a little bit about Toastmasters. Have you gone into district leadership?
I have been an area director. I have done mentoring a club, which didn't work out all that well. I did sponsor a club and did achieve my DTM just before as COVID was starting.
Nice.
And then that club didn't survive the pandemic, unfortunately.
Yeah. We do have that struggle of the clubs. We were talking about that. Ken and I were talking about that yesterday about clubs that didn't survive the pandemic. And we have a lot of work ahead of us. And that's one of the reasons why we do this show, is to talk about Toastmasters and the benefits and how it benefits individuals personally with their careers and also with their families as well. So one of my club members joined Toastmasters so that she can better communicate with her husband. She has her husband and then 2 boys. So she's surrounded with all these boys. She has to learn how to communicate, or maybe they need to communicate with her because,
both ways.
Yes. But it's very interesting why everybody joins Toastmasters for their own personal reasons, and it's different reasons. The 3 of us are on here. We join for completely different reasons. It's not, but the bottom line is always about communication. I want to be a storyteller, and the reason why I'm still a Toastmaster because I haven't mastered that yet. So
Okay. Well, storytelling is a different thing. And if you want to really learn about storytelling, join the Storytelling Guild.
Okay.
I'm happy because it's a little bit different. You learn the story and you tell it from your heart rather than there's no notes, no script that you follow.
I hold on to my notes very well.
It's for a long time too. I have learned to do less with less notes and less prompts.
Yes, it's tough. It's very, very tough. Even though I talk about my career, right? And I stand up and I say, this is me, but I still have my notes and my feedback. My evaluator is like, get rid of the notes, just get rid of it. Don't worry about it. Just throw it away. Don't look at it. I can't. All right. Now, you were an area director, and do you have any hopes of going up higher in the district, or?
I don't have any plans for that. I have enough going on in my own home, in my own family, in my own business, that I don't plan to go further.
Okay, very good.
But the Toastmasters overall has helped in so many ways, not just in presenting my book.
Yes, absolutely.
Carolyn, if somebody wants to write a book, do they need an editor? I know you're an editor. What does an editor do? That's something that you do outside of Toastmasters as a business.
I like to help authors look the best they can. Now, I'm not going to change their voice. And some writers obviously are stronger at writing than others. A newer writer has more to learn than somebody who's been at it for a while. But they also have to be willing to be corrected. If there's something that's not appropriate, I tell them, you don't want this in a book. And there's times when they think their way is the only way, and I can't really help them then. I had to cut ties with one author because she wasn't about to listen.
That is funny. That's another reason why one should join Toastmasters, right? Because you have to accept the feedback, and if someone's giving you that feedback, then you will also have to change to it. Right.
Sometimes I listened to a book launch last night, and an author said, I thought the story was pretty good when I sent it in for editing. But then she said, it's so much better now.
Oh, see? And
so, I mean, I have had help with my writing as well. And I need to be able to, taking the evaluations from Toastmasters has helped me accept feedback on my own work and my writing as well. I know that there's a little prickly spot where you might say, I don't know, that's my baby. That's why you have to set it aside for a while and say, okay, I need to look at it with fresh eyes. I'll get my critique group to look at it and see what feedback they come with.
I'm really impressed. I've spoken, like I said, to different authors, writers, and I think you're the first one that has that editing and understanding instead of just putting out the book because it's something that they want it to share to the world. But you are a complete author of, it sounds like, different genres, and also an editor as well. So that's
mostly creative nonfiction, except for stories.
Mhm.
This one started out as a story that I told in storytelling.
Oh. So
And then I had Sophie and the Giant Boy, and the illustrations are absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, look at that. That's cool.
I hired an artist for that.
I like that.
The
All right,
thing is
Doris.
that story evolved. It didn't stay the way it was when I first told it. I told it just after I wrote it, and telling the story that you've written is totally different than composing a story that you're always going to tell. So then it was published in 2020, and I gave a copy to the gal who started the Baden Storytellers Guild. She was had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and I wanted her to have a book of that story that I first told at the Story Barn the first night I was there.
Wow. So it sounds like some of your books come from maybe a need, a necessity for someone as well.
Sophie and the Giant Boy is about a little girl who helps a bigger boy. He's lost, hungry, and tired. So this conveying a feeling, I didn't plan that. It just came out as I wrote the story. The articles about fragrance, those were planned for education. The stories in my book, Once Upon the Sandbox, was to share what I know about growing up on a farm that someone else might feel, I know about those kinds of stories too, or that feeling in my story.
I love it. So Doris, do you have any other questions for Carolyn? You're on mute. She's like,
sorry, I live by the airport, a plane was going over. Carolyn is such an amazing person, and she really does reach out in her community. How do you reach out in your community, Carolyn? That makes a difference. I know you do many things. I know you do some knitting. I think she does so much that she sometimes takes it for granted that she just does this all.
I've done some knitting. The women at our church decided that we would support a need at Grand River Hospital and knit baby hats and booties for preemies at the hospital because there was a need there. Another thing would be Christmas Miracle Project. I knit some hats and I'm working on mittens for that. And that's for families who are just feeling some struggles. And I'm not the owner of that project or anything. I'm just supporting a friend who's involved with it. What do I do? When a family at a neighboring church was going through a tough time, someone set up a meal train. I participated in a couple of those as well. As I just think about what it would be like if I couldn't prepare meals and I was ill. How am I going to feed my family?
Yeah. Wow. Sounds like you have a really good heart and you're super duper busy and you're a Toastmaster. All right. Well, I know it took us a minute to log on. Carolyn, I have one more question for you. If somebody was coming through and they're watching our little show and you wanted them to learn one thing about being a Toastmaster, what would that be?
Toastmasters experience and practice will help you in every area of your life, in your business, in your personal life, your communication, leadership. There's so many ways that it will benefit you.
I like it. Any other parting words, Doris?
I'm just so glad that Carolyn could join us today. She's a dear friend of mine and of course my Toastmaster mentor. And I'm glad that she could share her story today. And she's an amazing woman. And Carolyn, can you maybe tell our audience how they can reach you for your books or for your editing business, or if they have anything that they would like you to help them with?
I have a website. It's got my bookstore on it. It has my editing contact, carolynwilker.ca. Easy to remember. And it's got all of those options, and several of my books are on Amazon.
Great.
Shopping for Christmas.
I like it. So what I will do also, it probably won't be this morning, but it'll be later on in the day. I will also put that in the comments too. So I really appreciate you coming over and talking with us this morning. I really appreciate it. You actually gave a lot of good tips and very beneficial for our show. I love having Doris as a co-host because she's not afraid to ask people to come on, and we've had a really, really good time with the guests that she's lined up. So thank you again, Doris, for coming on. It is Wednesday. It's time to go. I have to get to work.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone for the United States Thanksgiving. I don't know when you just had yours in Canada. And it looked just fabulous from Doris's end. And I know that you guys are getting snowed in as well. Are you getting snowed in, right?
Not right now.
Okay.
We had a couple milder days.
It did melt, but it will be coming back.
Well, stay warm out there, stay safe, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Stop the live stream.